This week's episode is in partnership with Intact Insurance, here for you and for everything you care about.
I'm just clearing my throat because I feel like I haven't seen you guys in about 6 months. I feel like it's been the longest time. Hi, you're listening to the Jann Arden podcast. I'm here with Caitlin Green, and Adam Karsh is in his home engineering this and putting it all together. And Caitlin, once again, is sitting on her bathroom floor. Are you in your bathroom today?
No, I moved on up.
Oh, where are you?
I am sitting in an armchair in my bedroom. See? Oh, wait, hold on.
Oh, I can see. We like to do these on video. We tape the audio, obviously, for this podcast, but we find it a lot easier to talk to each other because normally we would be in the studio.
Yeah.
But yeah, it has been quite hilarious, all the places we've been. I've had dogs barking. I've had, squirrel attacks and doors opening and shutting and people coming in the front door to like fix my internet. And it's just been a real potpourri. This is real life, people. And I believe we are on week 9 of being isolated, doing physical social distancing.
Yeah, it is week 9. It's week 9.
Week 9. I've been home since March the 7th. So that's all I know.
That's crazy. I was still at work in studio the week of that week of March. And then March 16th, I think, was the first day that I broadcast from home. And ever since then, it's been home. And I got to say, I have no clue when we're going to be back in the office, for me at least, back in the studio. At first, we did a bet on the morning show that I work on in Toronto of what date we'd be back. And I actually bet it would be this coming Tuesday after the long weekend. So I thought it would be May 19th. And I am losing that bet. I think it's probably going to be closer to July.
Yeah, I think something that's been helpful for me, and my job is different. I mean, I am not going to be doing live work until next year. Mm-hmm. It involves thousands of people, and I just don't see the music industry being in front of large crowds until next year. I think that will be the last phase of things that actually change and go sort of back to that semblance of normality, which is fine. I mean, it's heartbreaking, I think, just because it's what I love to do. But like even in Calgary, where I live outside of Calgary, I know that this past week they were supposed to open up restaurants, a few restaurants in a revised version of them. But that's all been pushed now for another 12 days. Mm-hmm. So I don't think there's anything bad happening in Calgary, except that somebody's made the decision to go, we just want to really nail this down. I'm not sure what happened. I'm going to try and get the scoop from my friend who works in HR with a little town called Cochrane here. But I don't know why. But there's another 12 days where it's really restrictive movement, and they're not even supposed to leave the city. So I don't know what that's all about.
It's kind of the same thing here in Ontario. Like restaurants still haven't been given the all clear to open. We have expanded our list of, reopened businesses a lot in the last little while. There's going to be more coming next week. But yeah, the ones that people were really hoping for were, of course, hairdressers, which I feel like is all anyone's talking about. And then nail salons, restaurants, and of course, dentists too. So these are all businesses where you're going to be in pretty close proximity to the service provider. And so I think now inside scoop in Toronto is that they're thinking June 2nd. They're thinking June 2nd for hair, and they're thinking June 2nd for restaurants. But that could change. It could be exactly like what just happened in Calgary, Jan. They could say, hey, June 2nd it is, and then decide, actually, we talked to public health officials. They want the numbers to be slightly lower. Let's wait.
Well, I mean, there's one thing that we don't have to worry about that is going to be reopening, and that's video stores. But, tell that to people in, I think is it Ohio? Where the hell is it? It's Oregon. It's a Blockbuster store in Bend, Oregon.
Yep.
And it is the only Blockbuster that is open still to this day.
Yeah, it's the last.
I mean, I don't know if it's open right now, but what I'm saying is that I don't even think COVID could close it. So you know more about it than I do, Caitlin.
It is still open. And the thing that's funny is I think that they're literally tossing they're tossing DVDs out. And like,
what do you mean, out the window or out to the customers?
No, like out to the customers. And they're disinfecting the DVDs that they have. And, they said that a bunch of people joked that they had watched, they said, I can't scroll through Netflix anymore. Like I've watched everything that I want to watch. There's too much content. I just want to come in and get a physical movie. And also, like, everything that's old is new again. I was reading about streaming services, and they're saying that, jazz music, like Louis Armstrong and Ella Fitzgerald and, oldies, their streaming numbers are through the roof. And, artists like Billie Eilish, not streaming the same numbers that they were before the pandemic. And it's because I think nostalgia is really comforting to people. So maybe that's part of the reason why Blockbuster, the last one, has stayed open. They're like using DVDs like Frisbees out to customers, I guess.
So is it under the Blockbuster header? Like, is it an actual official Blockbuster store?
Yeah, so they have the same sign. They have the same signage, the same branding, but I don't know if it's like a grocery store where it could be like a no frills, but it's owned by like a set family or a couple or something. But yeah, still the same signage. They're still calling it Blockbuster. So I don't know. I'd love to know what kind of DVDs people there are renting. And kind of a cute thing that they said was that, some people don't have access to the internet all the time. Obviously people who maybe couldn't afford it or lost their jobs, their internet's disconnected. This is a really cheap way for them to still see their favorite movies and not have to stream it.
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of assumptive things going on where people automatically think that every household has Netflix or every household has, Disney Plus or Apple this, or, there are thousands upon thousands of people that do not have access to the internet. They may not even have like a smartphone. They may not have any of that stuff. So I think we have to be really kind to you think about, I bought a new phone just like 4 or 5 months ago. I had in my defense, I had, I think, the 7. I had an iPhone 7, and it was kind of, I couldn't do upgrades anymore. There was things I couldn't do, and I hung on to it for the longest time. I did my cracked screen and did the whole thing, and then I just finally thought, well, I'll break down, and I might as well get the newer one, because everyone said, Jann, you take so many pictures, get a newer one. I just about fell over. Went into the Apple store. It was, no word of a lie, people. I might be a little bit off here, but I think it was $1,400 plus tax. Yeah. I got the lowest storage. What do you call that? Memory?
Yeah.
Because I'm like the memory that was like the top one was another $300 or $400. I'm like, no, not paying $1,800 for a phone. So it's basically like having a beautiful desktop computer, and I just couldn't anyway. So, if any of you guys have old iPads or, phones that you trade in, and maybe you have kids that you give them to, but please consider reaching out to women's shelters, or I wouldn't even know where to direct you, but get on the horn and see if there's someone that can take your old iPad or old iPhone, because right now it would be so fun for people to have that, even if it is a 6 or a 7 or an 8, or if you have like a first or second generation iPad that you just, like some people do, they have them sitting in drawers that they're not doing anything with. They just upgraded to a new one.
And so it's funny that you mentioned this, because there's an association, and I believe, I hope I'm not getting this wrong, but I think it's called the ERA, the Electronic Recycling Association. And we'd actually spoken to them on our show. Funny thing is, the woman who we spoke with is actually not far outside of Calgary. And it's a Canadian organization. And what they do is you send them all your old electronics, and they fix them up, and they redistribute them to people in the community who don't have access to, maybe a laptop or an iPad. Now, especially with e-learning, for a lot of students now, obviously this is the norm. And if you don't have a laptop in your household or an iPad, or maybe you only have one and your parent needs it for work, this is a great resource for them to be able to use and access this for no money. And it's also a great way to keep these items out of landfills, because some of the stuff in them is just terrible for the environment. So
Caitlin, let's make sure we post that. Let's make sure that we either tweet it out so people can go to the ERA
I know. I'm like, you guys are going to be looking up my nose for a second, but I'm going to look it up because I have her information in my email for work. And
Okay.
It's such a great service. And the other service that I saw, and I'm going to have to look up their name as well. It's these two guys out of Toronto. And what they do is they actually match senior citizens with a young kind of tech savvy millennial. And the millennial consults with them on how they can use Zoom, how they can use FaceTime, just how they can use their technology at home in order to stay in touch with their loved ones. Because of course, with senior citizens being some of the most vulnerable during the pandemic, they are very isolated and it's tough. So it's cool to see Canadians trying to get out there and help each other when it comes to either physically getting the hardware and also knowing how to use it.
Well, I'm sure a lot of these people hook up too, Caitlin. I'm sure there's a lot of hookups going on with the millennials and the seniors, because there's nothing that is more powerful than experience. So if anyone's looking to date like a panther such as myself.
Is that what you're called, a panther?
I can't be cougar anymore. What's 58? 58's got to be into panther lemur territory. Panther, lemur, where do we go after that? If anyone knows, please feel free to tweet us,
I know. I would love to know the answer to that question. Like, what's the threshold there? Panther. I love lemur. Thinking that somebody's a lemur is incredible.
Well, it's just the eyes. It's the eyes and the very elegant long fingers. That's definitely not me. I mean, I think my hands resemble cocktail sausages on occasion. But listen, I'm trying to keep together. I'm trying to have a semblance of looking well over here. A couple days a week, I'm actually blow drying my hair, putting makeup on, and getting myself organized. Listen, when we come back, we're going to talk about a bunch of things that are kind of a little strange. I want to touch on about Lance Armstrong a bit. People would remember him. He was the very award-winning Yellow Jacket Tour de France winner for many, many years. And then he was dogged with accusations of drug use and doctoring his physical abilities. But we're going to touch on that when we get back. And we're going to do a little bit of celebrity stuff. Kanye West security guards. We've got lots of stuff to talk about. You're listening to the Jann Arden podcast. We'll be right back. So as promised, I just wanted to talk about Lance Armstrong. I don't know why this interests me. I think what really got me with him, like I have no interest in sports. Sorry, everyone. But I really, I do like the Raptors and I like the finals of stuff. And I'll watch the Stanley Cup and the Grey Cup and all the cups. I'll watch them. And the Super Bowl because I like the ads like everybody else on the planet and the halftime. But anyway, long story short, when Lance started going out with Sheryl Crow, I was like, this is really interesting. Like, I don't know what the hell she sees in him. I thought it was like the weirdest matchup ever. It was like Old Mother Hubbard and Tom Jones for some reason. I don't know. I felt like it was really weird. So Lance, anyway, had a massive fall from grace 5-6 years ago. He's never really publicly spoken about his doctoring, the steroid use, any of that crap. So now, May 24th, because we're all going to be at home to watch this stuff, he's got a 4-hour film. It's in 2 parts, but I'm thinking they're going to do 4 hours on this guy. And he says he's going to come clean about exactly what happened.
Yeah. And I think now, because there isn't any sports right now, people have gone for so long without any, you're going to maybe see any of these sports documentaries that were either in the works or maybe they were in post already, but they're just pushing them right through to release them as soon as they can. It's like the hit Michael Jordan documentary about, the famous Chicago Bulls and all the seasons that he played with them, called The Last Dance. It's just been a sensation on Netflix because people are dying for sports. Also, they're dying for nostalgia. So it's like a combination of the two. And not ever having heard from, Lance in any great depth about what happened, covering 4 hours, it seems like a long time to me. I mean, they're releasing it in 2 chunks, but when I think of The Last Dance, I'm not even a big basketball fan. And I've been enjoying it immensely, like all the behind the scenes stuff and the stories about everything that these guys overcame in their lives to get to where they were. It was pretty cool. But I don't know. Do you think he'll talk about Sheryl Crow? I feel like he broke her heart.
I don't know who broke up with who there. The thing with me is, I don't know how you feel about it. This was sort of pre-cancel culture. Maybe this was the beginning of cancel culture. to a certain
you're
degree
right.
because he, he denied it. And as far as I know, up until this special that comes out the 24th, he has claimed the whole way along that he was not guilty of doctoring. He was not guilty of steroid use or drug use, that everything he did was from hard work. And I've said this a lot too over the years. Say what you will about steroids. I'm sorry, like cycling for hundreds and hundreds of miles, I don't care what kind of drug you take, that takes an enormous amount of dedication. You've got to be in the shape of your life. And I don't think there's a drug in the world, including cocaine or some kind of jumped up whatever, that's going to get you to pedal, and dedicate yourself to win a race like that. It takes intelligence of how to make the moves and how to navigate, 1,000 riders in that crazy thing. I don't know.
His doping scandal though was like, I read a little bit about it. I'm not going to claim to know everything. It was insanely next level. Like, we are talking the people who were on his bike team, the doctors they had behind them would literally swap out a human's worth of blood and give them fresh blood. Now, again, I hope I'm dead on about this because someone,
God, this sounds terrible. I thought he was getting a shot in the bum, Caitlin. This is a whole different thing.
This is like and that's the thing. It's like he bore the brunt of it, and rightfully so. I mean, he accepted the all the accolades and all the money, knowing full well that what he was doing was superhuman. And I've always felt like, okay, well, let's see what I could do if you gave me probably some 18-year-old's blood and all the human growth hormones under the sun. Maybe I'd be winning the Tour de France. I don't know. And
I would not be winning, no matter if they gave me 5 bodies worth of Michael Jordan human blood with I don't know. There's no way. I don't have the dedication or the drive. That sounds disgusting.
Well, what you do nail though is that he was obviously highly competitive and driven. But I remember seeing, and he was diagnosed, I believe it was with testicular cancer, and
yes.
And he overcame it. Well, then I started, and it was funny because I remember this was all going on, and my dad is. Oh, hello, Mitty. This is Mitty's cameo.
Sorry, God.
No, it's okay. But yeah, my dad is an extremely fitness-oriented person. And so when this is all going on, and then, he overcomes cancer, and then the doping scandal comes out, my dad was like, well, what did they have him on? Like, can I get some of these human growth hormones? Like, I want to be able to do all this, like, the crazy fitness level stuff that he is. Like, why can't this be legal for everybody to have if it's going to potentially cure your diseases and make you a super athlete?
Well, I mean, you got to feel for the guy. It's got to be difficult. I mean, never mind having cancer, and Adam can speak to this, but having cancer of your private parts.
Your danger zone.
There's got to be an added level of terror involved in that, Adam.
Yes, I would be very, very scared, obviously, if that was the case. And I don't know how, cancer is bad enough as it is, but if it's down there, that's really trouble.
My mom would probably say, well, I bet you any money it had something to do with him sitting on that stupid little seat.
Oh my God.
And I bet you his knackers were just, taking a pounding on there, and no wonder. That would be my mother. And you'd kind of go, yeah, that doesn't sound that off.
I will tell you that I have tried spin class in my life a few times, and it is not going to happen for me. It is not comfortable. I don't care about it. I can't do it. And they sell these special gel padded like shorts that you would wear. It's almost like a gelatin like diaper that you wear to help protect your
Well, there goes our
crotch.
Peloton sponsorship, Caitlin.
Well, hey, maybe they can send me
you.
the gel diaper. I don't know. I just always wondered, and again, medical disclaimer here, clearly not a doctor, but what if all the stuff that he was taking was actually, what if the stuff that he was taking though, like maybe he shouldn't have been taking it because it was illegal to win races, but what if it actually helped his physical health? Like, I don't know. I'm so curious.
He may well be alive because of having 19 bodies worth of human blood exchange. So can we just expand on this for a second? I know you're kind of hypothesizing here, Caitlin, but how would that take place? Would they go, this didn't happen like while they were racing. They didn't pull them over like an Indy 500. They did not. Caitlin is nodding. She's nodding on the video right now. So you're telling me that they overnight when they were resting between this bike race, the team would go into the room and exchange their blood.
So I don't know about that. I don't know if it's the specifics of the blood, and I'm not. Someone's gonna be like, "This never happened, Caitlin. What are you talking about?" But my understanding was from the limited research that I did.
This is so sad, Caitlin. I have to stop you because this is the end of this segment.
Okay.
We're gonna come back because that deserves at least 40 seconds of our time. You're listening to the Jann Arden podcast. Please come back and learn about Lance Armstrong's testicles and his blood transfusions. Okay, bye. We're going to launch right back in. We were supposed to touch on Lance Armstrong. This was my doing, but we were talking about him getting these complete blood transfusions, like a human body's worth of blood transfusions while he was doing the Tour de France. And he has this special coming out May the 24th, 4 hours long, 2-parter, where he's going to come clean and talk about this. So anyways, Caitlin actually Googled it. So what is he getting? Like the platelets?
Yeah. So because I thought I probably knew about 5% of this, and then that informed my take. But
this is such a light topic today. It's so light and kind of, it's just whimsical.
Whimsical blood takes is what we're doing today on the show. But so it's called blood doping, and it involves adding red blood cells to increase your performance abilities. And he talked about this with Oprah. I was like, where the heck did I feel like he defended himself? And it was Oprah. And I was getting him confused with the author of A Million Little Pieces, who also had to defend himself on Oprah because of some lies he told in his book. And
a lot of lies.
Yeah, a lot of lies. And Lance goes on Oprah too, and it was on his probably like his defense tour. And he said nobody could win the Tour de France without doping. And he talks about the very, very streamlined doping process that they had it was commonplace. And it wasn't just him. It was the whole team. It was everyone who was behind him. And it involved human growth hormones and blood doping and, types of steroids and stuff. And it's the same, it's the question I've always asked when you see these high performance athletes is like, is this the same as, when you'd see Arnold Schwarzenegger, like bodylifting back in the 70s or whenever? Like, is it the same thing?
Well, I think the drugs came a long way from the 70s. I'm sure steroids in the 70s were pretty you would just get a very...
Oh, but that's what I mean. As in, I feel like the athletes who were back in the day, they didn't have access to it.
No.
So I feel like athletes today aren't the same as athletes back in the day. Like, it's not the same as in my mind, it doesn't seem like it would be the same as Arnold Schwarzenegger or Michael Jordan, or I don't know. Like, I can't imagine it being as refined as all this.
He's like the Kardashian of the sports world.
Yes.
I'm sure that, I don't know about you, and I can't even believe I'm bringing up the Kardashians, but I'm fascinated by them. Khloe, she doesn't even look like anything, but I like that. I like when people kind of reinvent themselves, and we certainly age. I'm unrecognizable. I look back even 15 years and I'm like, who the hell was that?
Yeah.
I look at myself, whatever, weight, hairstyles. We have all these pictures at our fingertips now. Like, whenever I have memories come up on Facebook or something from even 3 years ago, I'm going, OMG.
Yep.
What the hell was I wearing? And why did I think my arms were so fat? My arms were awesome back then.
That's hilarious. I just saw a photo of myself at a wedding recently, and I was wearing a sleeveless dress. And I thought, why the heck was I so picky about my upper arm area, which looked great by all accounts. But yeah, the other thing too that's weird with social media and with the Kardashians is, even though, yes, they all have different faces than they were, except for Kourtney, I think, than they were naturally born with, they also use these face tuning type apps on their photos.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, of course, because their business is to look like they don't have a pore on their body. So they post these photos and they're, fixed within an inch of their life already, on top of the fact that they've had massive amounts of cosmetic procedures.
Do you think so?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, I don't, but you know what? Having said that, whatever blows your skirt up,
yeah,
I am never going to sit back and point fingers or say whatever lifts your spirit or makes you feel like you want to feel. I would be I mean, I have to support that, especially
I
with
agree.
women. I cannot point my finger at anybody and go, why would you do that to your nose? Or why would you do that? And I'm saying this because when I was in my mid-20s, my mom got her neck done. Nothing else on her face. She didn't like her neck, which I can relate to now at 58. You know, things
I
start
relate to it
happening.
now. Like I relate to it
And-
at 36.
But mom saved her money. She worked at an egg farm, which was a really crappy job, and sorting all these eggs. And she would work weekends and in the evenings. I remember her leaving after the dinner table saying, "You kids have to eat because I've got." And she walked down the road or took her bike and went and worked at this egg farm. And she saved, I don't know what it was. It was like $3,500. It might as well have been $1 million. And she went to a doctor in Calgary and she got her neck lifted. And I remember her crying about when they took everything off. And she came home that afternoon and she had these little drains and stuff. And I was so freaked out. But I looked at my mom, who was not a vain person. She just wasn't. And that changed the way I thought about why people do things. And she was so happy. And she just, the way she held herself, the way she maneuvered her way through the world, I was always very proud of her. And she did something that really made a difference in her life.
It can be a huge confidence boost for people, and everyone has, you should have body autonomy where it's your body. You can look how you want and you can kind of do what you want with it. If you want to make changes, you should be able to make changes. I just think that the general population doesn't realize how many changes the most beautiful people in the world may have made to themselves to look that way, because they have to be on camera all the time. It's a different level of stress and visibility for celebrities. And so oftentimes young people without any context or knowledge of that compare themselves. And I just think,
I know.
Compare yourself with the knowledge that, you don't have to look this way to be successful and to be considered attractive by everybody. And if you want to make changes to yourself, you can, but like not everybody's born looking like that. And let's be honest.
Well, it's expensive too. And
it's so expensive.
Yeah. And you don't want to go to somebody who botches it. I mean, one of my favorite shows to watch in this pandemic has been Botched.
I can't stomach it.
And it has been any kind of tattoos being fixed that were terrible, plastic surgery gone sideways that is being fixed. I am fascinated. The Dr. Pimple Popper or whatever the.
Oh no, Jan, you watched that?
Yeah, I'm just like, a lot of times I'm looking through the cracks in my fingers but I just can't help myself. Like Dr. Pimple Popper, isn't that what it is?
Yeah, it is. It's Dr. Pimple Popper.
Anyway,
this woman, she's made a fortune off of it.
Well, a word of caution, just, do what you want to feel well. But I think, do your homework. And like my mom, she saved her money because my dad couldn't afford that. And she friggin' worked at an egg farm to pay for it. But that was a real pivotal thing for me. I don't know. I just feel like it's so appearance driven these days, and I find it a little bit bothersome because of what you said, Caitlin, that younger people, men and women, are being presented with these ideas, these visuals, and you're saying, listen, use caution because it's not really real.
It's not real. And again, I think anyone can make changes to themselves if they want to, whether it's coloring your hair or, getting Invisalign or whatever you want to do, improve yourself if you want to. But I just get so worried about people who are younger and don't have the same life experience. And also people who then look at it and feel like, oh, no one's going to think I'm attractive. Like, absolutely, people will still there's attractive qualities about every single person, and it's so subjective. And how the Kardashians look is one version of LA beauty, but it's also not for everybody. And sometimes you see, I've got to say, I see some celebrities doing like makeup tutorials and stuff on their social media. When they actually move their face and they're not in a still photo, it looks weird. So you have to think about it that way too. You're just seeing a photo, you're seeing a still image, and it can be altered. But if you saw that person in real life, in conversation, you might be like,
I know.
Actually.
And keep this in mind too. They're not any happier than you are. Mm-hmm. And what we are learning through this isolation and through this whole pandemic thing is how very little we need. Appearance doesn't mean a heck of a lot when you don't have anyone looking at you.
Yeah.
We have a closet full of clothing, and you're seeing all these celebrities really struggling with where they fit into the world, because most of them need an audience. It's what fills them up. It's what perpetuates their fame. It's what gives them their sense of power, their sense of, whatever it is that fame is. People have to remember this, and I know I have to wrap this up for our next segment, but we create fame. So whenever we rattle the chains of someone who's famous, and we shake our heads and we're disappointed and we can't believe their behavior, we must remind ourselves who makes fame, who makes people famous, and that lies within us. That lies within us. You're listening to the Jann Arden podcast. We've got so many more interesting things to talk about. We want to talk about Kanye West Bodyguard. This is a fun show because we got to keep it moving, folks. Welcome back to the Jann Arden podcast. I'm here with Caitlin Green. Adam Karsh is making this all work and seemingly seamless. We have to. I can't. I'm going to leave this topic alone after this with the Lance Armstrong. But let's just consider. And Caitlin, you're the one that brought this up. The blood and the exchange of getting the red blood cells. Do you know how hard and rare it is to get blood now for different operations? The Red Cross and all these agencies are always not beating up, but really trying to advocate people to give blood, the products that they need to save lives, burn victims, people that are in car accidents, people that are in traumas, cancer patients, people going through all kinds of crap. And here's this athlete, getting access to these blood products to win a race. I hate how that reads.
I mean, athletes have always had access to some of the best, medical expertise and health science in the world, because it's sort of that's their industry, right? It's like how, celebrities industry is looking good. So they always have the best doctors and the best skincare people, makeup, everything. So, he did engage in like blood doping, where you get a boost of these red blood cells as part of his performance. And it's funny because it does remind me of when COVID first came out, you started wondering to yourself, as nobody in the general public was able to get tested, as people who were frontline workers working in nursing homes and stuff, they couldn't get their hands on a test. They were being denied tests.
Nope.
Well, all of a sudden, an entire basketball team can just get a test like that. They can just get a test overnight. An entire group of athletes, if they want to bring sports back, right, they're going to have to keep testing them. They're going to have to keep testing all these athletes, test them all the time. They're going to have to test anyone who's in contact with them. And, so long as tests are a little hard to come by for the general public, I think people are right to feel a bit left out and like they're less valued than an athlete.
You know who should be tested? Everyone that works in a slaughter plant, everyone working in animal proteins, the people on the front lines, providing people with food and working in these god-awful, horribly tragic environments. What about testing them? I mean, we've seen, so many people, hundreds of people getting sick in these horrible, those are our versions of the wet markets, folks. But anyways, I'm going to move on before I get us into trouble. Kanye West, his bodyguard, was Steve Stanulus is his name.
Yeah.
And it's secrets. I love this stuff. Secrets of the Hollywood, elite that have these bodyguards.
Yes.
And he's come out. I don't know why he didn't have a non-disclosure agreement that he had to sign. But anyway, he's come out with all these ridiculous rules that he had to have with Kanye. When he was working with Kanye, he had to walk 10 paces, I guess yards, behind him on a city street. So if you're going to tackle somebody or hit them or punch them or something, 10 paces seems like an awful long way to go to protect a guy. So,
well, it's like, how ineffective is that as a bodyguard to be told that you have to leave enough space between you and your client so that somebody could kind of jump in and attack them if they wanted to? Like, it would be very hard.
I thought if I had a bodyguard, God forbid, I would want them right beside me to help me. I mean, the only place I've maybe needed a bodyguard is in Costco next to the sales on t-shirts. When everyone's in there trying to grab stuff out of the bin. But I personally have never in my life had a bodyguard. I've had security at shows. that sort of sit in front of the stage on bigger shows, but I've never had an experience, but I've never will experience that level of fame.
The stories he was telling too, where it's like, it's always, he was on a podcast. And so it's kind of all the behind the scenes look at what it was like working for him, working for Kanye. And I mean, it doesn't sound like a particularly affable guy to work for. It doesn't sound like it was an easy gig by any stretch of the imagination. I bet you a lot of people who work around some bizarre celebrities would say the same thing. But he also did confirm, it seems, that when they would go to restaurants or locations with, Kim Kardashian in tow or
he
one of her
family.
Yep, that somebody, not necessarily Kanye himself, but that somebody was very much notified in advance. They're going to be coming. They're going to be at the, this restaurant in LA, and the paparazzi were tipped off. So then they would show up. The Kardashians would dress accordingly, look their best, look their most stylish. Maybe a designer would send them the clothing because then they're photographed in it, right? It's all part of an industry.
Yeah.
So it's
my friend worked for Pamela Anderson Lee. Am I saying Pamela Lee Anderson? Oh, what
she's just Anderson now.
Okay, Pamela Anderson. We know who it is.
Yeah.
Anyways, he worked with her in London on a book tour. And he had to phone ahead to every restaurant they went to, every hotel lobby. Yep. He phoned ahead to make sure that the paparazzi were there. And it was one of the things that she really stipulated that had to be done through her people.
Yeah.
So, I mean, who the hell would want to do that?
It's big money. This is the thing. It's like, it's a big, big industry. Like, it's the entertainment industry for a reason. Everyone thinks like, oh, it's spontaneous and those rude paparazzi are just always hanging out in a bush. But now for some celebrities who actively try to stay out of the spotlight, that's true. Like, do I think that, Michael Cera wants to be followed around LA? Not particularly. Seth Rogen, probably not looking to be followed by the paparazzi. So if they get a photo of them, then fine. But yeah, like people who make their money, especially off of looking beautiful, like, Pamela Anderson has and like the Kardashians have, if your money is made to be looked at, then you need people to keep looking at you.
Well, I just find it really funny. I just have to read you this little thing. It's so ridiculous. So this is Steve. This is Kanye's bodyguard. On his first day of work, they stepped into an elevator, him and Kanye. And Steve doesn't know, what floor they're going to, which isn't really his job, I guess. And as the story goes, Kanye starts ranting and raving in the elevator. And he says, "You mean you didn't call ahead to find out where I'm going?" And so Steve says to him, "Look, bro, we can do this one of three ways. You can tell me what button to press. You can press the button so I'll learn which one. Or we can be here all day while you tell me how important your time is." So I can't really see that unfolding like that myself personally. I mean, these people can be so intimidating. But I've always marveled at, the whole bodyguard thing. When you're out somewhere, what do you do at something like the Oscars or the Emmys? Like, do people, obviously there's some very famous people that go to these award shows. Where do they put all their bodyguards? Like, does everyone bring their bodyguards? I've never even thought this through. They're all sitting there. Do they forego that
yeah,
day?
well, I would assume that the Oscars have their own level of security that would simply be part of the production cost, and they would have to be stationed around various points in the auditorium. But yeah, like certainly for the red carpet and arrivals, I would think that a private security detail would be like the norm for most celebrities. I've been to a wedding, a very, very wealthy kind of fancy wedding where a lot of the families attending were quite powerful, had a lot of money, and they all showed up to the wedding with their own security detail. And so they would be at.
Oh my God! Why? So, like scared of being kidnapped? What?
Yeah.
Oh,
Scared of just any potential of anything happening. A lot of people with a lot of money being in one place at the same time, and it's just part of their day-to-day life. So when they show up, I initially thought, oh, look at all these people working for the wedding planners, because they have like little headsets in there, little earpieces in, and it's all the coordinated security teams of the wealthy people who are there. But we're talking like billionaires with like a B. And my only other experience would be like another friend married a guy whose family has quite a bit of money, and we've been out with them a lot. They're super fun. We've socialized with them, but we would go to things like a hockey game or like an event, And we would frequently have a bodyguard with us, with him specifically. And it was so that the bodyguard would have a license to carry anywhere you go. Whereas like you wouldn't be able to bring a gun into a hockey arena if you didn't have your own security guard with you. A lot of them are former police officers. Great way for them to make money after they were
who would even know who these people were if they weren't famous in the typical sense? These are rich businessmen. Who would even know them? And what exactly would the bodyguard be protecting them from? Somebody coming up and saying hello? Or, are they afraid of being kidnapped from a hockey game? I don't get it. I don't get it, Caitlin.
I think it becomes part of everyday life. The other thing that's important to remember is like we view this in the context of a Canadian, right? But I will disclose these are U.S. citizens.
Okay.
And in the U.S., when any Joe Blow on the street might have a gun, it's very different level of risk when you're rolling around. And so if he's going to be in places where there's a real mixed bag and you think to yourself, I might have to get out of here fast, or somebody could have a weapon on them if at any time, you just feel safer, I guess, when you have a security detail with you. And it's just commonplace. Like the way that I always saw it was at first super strange to me. And then you realize, oh, it's like part of their day-to-day life. And the wedding that I was at was actually in South America, and kidnappings are super real there.
You are correct there.
Yeah.
Like guys that are working on oil rigs, like in very high up administrative positions. Like, yeah, I do understand that. Okay, just a little quick flip a topic here.
Yeah.
I never want to be in a position where I need a bodyguard. Let's just leave it at that.
Never.
I think I kind of like my mediocre Canadian famous life, whatever that is. It's very mundane, and I talk to people in Costco on a regular basis, and it's all good. Anyway, moving on. So when I was growing up, I don't know about you guys, but I had a very strange, musical taste. And now, I don't think I would have wanted my parents to always know what I was listening to.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have. In fact, I wouldn't wanted to have anyone know. So now there's this article, Spotify, there's an app that you can, as a parent, go and see the list that your kids are listening to. We got 40 seconds, Caitlin. You wrap this up. Would you want your parents to know what you're listening to?
No, because they would have told me that I couldn't listen to a lot of the stuff I was listening to.
Listen to what?
Well, they caught me listening to Salt and Peppa when I was all of 12 years old. They had their album Very Necessary that came out, and it was extremely sexually explicit, although I didn't know what the lyrics meant. I just thought it was three kind of like badass women who could rap. So I liked it. And then, but you listen to the few opening lines on None of Your Business, and it's all about like none of your business who I sleep with was essentially the theme of the song. And if your 12-year-old kid's listening to it, I'm guessing that parents are going to block that on Spotify.
Well,
and yeah.
If this was back in the day, Caitlin, your parents could have gone in. You could have gone in to listen to your favorite Salt and Peppa song, and you would have found it blocked by your parents, because that's what they can do now. Listen, this show went by so fast, and thanks for listening. This has been the Jann Arden Podcast. Caitlin Green, Adam Karsh. You're going to see us here next week and hear us. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Toodaloo-doo.